And I'm Johnny Goulden, with me James Marlow. And a consequence of David Lammy's decision to halt some of the licences will affect jobs, James.
Yep, it's going to affect jobs, it's going to affect revenue as well. Now, David Lammy specifically said 30 out of the 350 contracts, so it's not too much. But I was just mentioning before the break that it's actually a political decision. How do we know it's a political decision? Simply because the last government said it looked into this and there was no reason whatsoever to ban any contracts to Israel according to international law.
Right.
A new government comes in and says, well, actually, we are going to ban a few of them. Why are you doing that? To appease the far left part of your own party, who does not like Israel and wants to see it removed from the map. That proves it's a political decision, and this is not based on humanitarian law or human rights whatsoever. And that's very disappointing, because I feel that a Labour Party, who've got a very strong majority, have bowed down to the pressure from some of their extremist backbenchers, and it's wrong.
And yesterday, Netanyahu tried to set the record straight and said, we are continually being rejected by Hamas. A US-backed policy to try and free the hostages was turned down even 5 days ago. And then now we've seen the murder of 6 hostages. And Joe Biden as well is guilty of this, applying pressure to Netanyahu, and instead should be applying pressure to the terrorists, to the savages of Hamas.
Well, I feel uncomfortable by calling out the president and the vice president, who's tried to help along the months, of saying that they are indirectly responsible for this, just like some Israelis on the streets of Israel are saying that Netanyahu is even responsible for this. This is a group which is opposed to the right government. They lost the election 2 years ago. It's less than 2 years ago. So I'm uncomfortable with this type of extreme type of rhetoric against the other side. But I will say this, that had Israel, I think it was a mistake, had Israel gone into Rafah at the time that they were supposed to go into Rafah, there is a chance, and we will never know, there is a chance that some of these hostages could have been saved. And who was saying don't do it? Well, besides the president and the vice president, who was up to be the president in November, we also had United Nations and humanitarian organizations and governments around the world said don't do it. There'll be a massacre, there'll be a continuation of a genocide. You've got 2 million people in Rafah. There's not 2 million people across Gaza. It's between 1.8 to 2 million. Yeah. And they're spread out across Gaza. Yes, many of them are in the south, but they weren't in Rafah. But we knew, I say we knew, speaking on behalf of Israel, the Israelis knew that a lot of the hostages, if not all of them, were inside of the tunnels underneath Rafah. And the problem of the deal which Netanyahu is trying to defend, and I think that he is right, is that if you pull away from that part of land which is just on the border of Egypt, which is what Hamas are insisting, completely the IDF have to leave Gaza, completely leave Gaza, then they will release some hostages, and then Israel has to release prisoners from jails who have been convicted of crimes. But how do you not know that Hamas will take some of those hostages through those tunnels into northern Sinai, into Egypt, and they end up in Iran? Nobody can give those guarantees.
No one can do that.
Simply cannot trust. If I could just say...
And there's a baby among those hostages.
A 1-year-old redhead baby.
Yes.
You've got an 86-year-old grandfather as well. You've got 97 hostages still left in Gaza who were taken from Gaza.
Kidnap a baby, James?
Plus 4 who've been there for the last 10 years. Now, just very briefly, we all know about Rachel Goldberg-Polin, who buried her son yesterday, Hirsch, at exactly the same time that David Lammy was announcing licenses being banned to go to Israel, at least some of them anyway. Do we know of a British hostage? Her name is Emily Damari. She's 27 years old. She has dual Israeli and British citizenship. She was taken from Kibbutz Kfar Aza on October the 7th. Her last text, which went out to family, was at 10 o'clock in the morning. She said that they're shooting all around us, and she was taken away. We haven't heard anything from her since. She's a British hostage. Why is the British government and why is the British press not highlighting this name? I'll say it one more time. Emily Damari, she's 27 years old, and she's being held in the Gaza dungeons by Hamas.
Emily Damari, a British-Israeli hostage, part of the problem of
out of the 101 hostages still being held.
hostages, maybe up to 30 are dead. James Marlow, thank you very much indeed. A very worrying morning. A lot of pelters were dead.